Well, welcome back to another web development video where I'll show you how to make modern websites using HTML5, CSS3, and a little bit of JavaScript. In this video I'm going to show you how to add icons to different sections of your Mobirise website if the block doesn't already have a space for an icon. So let's say you want to do something excuse me, a little bit custom. Then this will allow you to add icons, or if you want to use icons that are they don't come shipped with Mobirise with the software, and you want to add your own custom icons from an icon font like Font Awesome, or I'm going to use one called Material Design Iconic Font. And there are lots of different font icons out there. You could also input images, just like you normally would put an image. You just download an icon and then put it in as an image. But I'm going to show you how to do something a little bit more dynamic, and it'll affect the entire website. So once you choose a font icon set, then you can add icons pretty much anywhere you want to. And you just need to connect it to that font icon set. So let's take a look. This is a website I made in my last video for a portfolio. So the icon set that I'm going to use, it's called Material Design Iconic Font, and it's the material design fonts from, or icons from Google, but also some extras. So they use the same material design style and created extra icons. And you can find it here. You can see it's a GitHub repo, but if you just search for Material Design Iconic Font, it'll show up. And they make it really easy to add to your website. You just add this code right here to the head of your website, so where your title and your meta description and all that goes, not to the body but the head. And we don't have code level access necessarily to the head of the website, but Mobirise does give us access on each page to the head and the body tags. So I'll show you how to do that here. So when you come to your page, you have to do this at the page level. You can't do it at the site level, as far as I know. And you go to whatever your page is, and you click on the settings icon. I'm using Mobirise 4. And so you can see we're on the home page. This is all meta description sort of stuff. So this is the kind of things that you would see in the head of the website page. Now you can insert head code, or you can insert body code. That's not where we want that. And then there's also something where you can put it before even the document type loads, which is the very top of the web page. So we do have access to these things. You just got to do it sort of at a per page level. So what this means for you in the long run is anywhere you want these font icons to show, you're going to have to go to that page's settings and make sure you add this code so that it connects that page to the font icons. So we want to put it inside the head code, and that's the head section at the very top of the web page. It's sort of hidden. You don't know it's there unless you're actually dealing with the code. What gets output to the page is in the body. So for the inside the body code, you would want to put any JavaScript plugins or libraries that you want to use. You would put those here at the end of the body code. So I'm just going to paste that in. Nope, that's not it. So we have to copy this, and then we're going to come in and we want to paste it inside the head of the web page. Okay, and that's all we have to do there. We can click out of this now, and I'm going to come down and I'm going to add an icon to each one of these boxes. So the way that we do that is now I can go to the icons once I've connected it to the icon font and I can literally choose any of these icons to add to my website. So what do we have? Let's try to do something that makes sense. So user experience, they have these different sections here. So I'm just going to go to person, and we want their user experience to be good and have a good mood. So what we do is we take this this HTML and we're going to copy that, and that's what's going to go into our HTML. Now this is the part where if you don't have the HTML editor, the code editor for Mobirise, if you want to do this sort of level of customization, I highly suggest that you just fork out the money. It's a one-time purchase. You don't have to keep purchasing it. And if you want to do any sort of customizations or additions, you want to be adding things to the code itself or changing CSS or whatever you want to do, I highly suggest that you just pay the one-time fee, get the plugin, because it'll make your life infinitely easier. Now, if you're using Mobirise as a developer and you're just sort of quickly putting together blocks and you're going to take those and publish them and then you're going to export them to a local folder and then open it in a code editor and do your own customizations that way, and then you're never going to bring it back into Mobirise, then if that's your workflow, then you don't really need the code editor, and you probably don't need this video. You probably know how to do this already anyway. But for those who don't know HTML, they don't know CSS, you don't know how to manipulate files outside of Mobirise, then I just say buy the code editor. If you want to do this level of customization, it'll make your life infinitely easier, and it keeps you from having to figure out how to do edits outside of Mobirise and then bring it back in. It's not an easy process because it's meant to be sort of all done inside of Mobirise. So all that said, I have the code editor and I'm going to show you how to do it and how easy it is. So for each block, once you have the code editor bought and installed, then it'll give you this edit code section. This edit code button. So you have your normal parameters for the block that you can turn on and off, but then we also have access to the actual code of each individual block. And you can see that this is the block up here, right? There's a lot of stuff going on here. If you don't know HTML or CSS, that's okay. You don't need to necessarily for this video. It helps to have sort of a background in those things. And I actually have some basic HTML and CSS, HTML basics and CSS basics playlists. So if you want to learn HTML from the very beginning, I have one called Start with One, and that's a playlist that takes you all the way from zero. You don't have any concept of what HTML is. If you kind of know what it is, you can start with the HTML basics playlist and then move on to CSS basics, and it essentially just shows you the basics of each of those languages. So we're going to target these areas here because I can tell, because it says business strategy, user interface design, user experience design. And what we want to do is we want to put it, let's see if I can find it. We want to put our icon right here before this bold text. So we're going to put it right here in each one of those. And inside of our code, it is this card box here. So let's see if I can draw all of that. This is all inside the card box. You can see it says user experience. Mobirise is an easy builder, blah, 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 right? So that corresponds to this right here. So all of this gray area is called card box. So what we want is we want it to be before our title, but inside that box. So we go to the end of our card box, we put a space, and this is going to be before our title, and then still inside the box. And then make sure that we copied our code. So I'm just going to copy it. And we're just going to put this HTML right into our HTML, just like that. Now, it's best not to have just an I element by itself. You want to wrap it with something. So we're going to actually wrap it with something called a span tag. So a span tag requires an opening and a closing. So you can see that this one doesn't have the little closer forward slash bracket, but this one does. Okay, so this is like an opening and a closing. So we wrap it, sort of bookend it or sandwich it with this tag, and now we can control things with this span tag, and we're going to need to control things. You could also use a p tag or a div. A span is more appropriate in my opinion. And then you can see how we have all these classes, right? So these are all CSS classes, and they correspond over here. And what a CSS class allows us to do is to target this specific element on the page. So as opposed to all span tags or all I tags, if you just do that over here, like this is going to change every P tag, every paragraph, and this one's going to change every H4. But we only want to deal with these specific elements. So when we put a class, then we can manipulate specific elements. So I'm just going to say a class equal to what's it called, skills icon. We'll go with something like that. You can make up any name you want. Just it needs to make some sense whenever you're looking at the code. So now this is all ready to go, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy this. I know that we need 3 of them, so I'm going to go down to each one of these, and then I'm going to place them in here. Now I don't want the same icon. This is going to give me the same icon for all 3 boxes, but I want user interface design to be a little different than user experience. So let's see. We can do something like this one. So user interface design is like building navigation, or the way a user experiences the page. So I'm just going to highlight that entire icon, and I'm just going to paste over it with the new one. Okay, you see what I did there? So now it's a different icon. You can see the other one up here. You could also just change this part here, because that's really the part that's changing. And the last one is going to be business strategy. So what could we do for that? What did I do before? I did chart, I think, something like that. I don't have a proper like growth chart kind of deal. So you could do that chart, which is a donut. Doesn't say very much, but this one here has a little bit more. So it's kind of a graph, businessy chart kind of thing, right? You're just trying to get the idea of what it's about. So I'm going to replace this last icon like that. Okay, and when we're finished, if we go over here and we click save and close, then it'll save the changes that we made. If we don't like them, then we can just cancel all of the changes that we made, and it won't do anything to the block. So let's save it and close. Now there's more space here, so I can see that. I don't know if you can, as compared to before. So I know there's something there, but when you do it this way, it's not part of Mobirise's system necessarily for you to add things like that and have them show up. So you're kind of doing this on faith. If you do it the way I told you, it'll work fine, and you'll be able to see. But if we preview it in the browser, you'll be able to see, because it'll just render the code as a normal web page. So you can see now that we have our icons. We're connected to our icon font, and now we can literally use any of those icons from that icon font anywhere on the website that we want to. Maybe this is good for you, but I'll show you how to manipulate the icons themselves. So if we go back into Mobirise, we don't really need to touch our HTML anymore, but remember we gave this span the class of skills icon. So we come over to our to our CSS, and we're going to write skills-icon. And then inside of this skills icon, we want to target the eye. So we just do eye like this. So that's going to look at every skills icon eye tag, and then it's going to do something to it. So we put our curly brackets, and this is all the CSS editor over here. So this is HTML, this is CSS, and for each one we want to change the, well, I'll show you what it looks like, because I think I had the I had some styles on it before. So these are what they look like just normally. So when you just import the icons in with no style, no changes to them, this is what they look like. Okay, that's a little small for my taste. I'm looking for something a little bigger than that. So when we come back into our code, we're going to make it bigger first. So we'll say font size, and that's how we make text bigger. And you can these are images, but you can think of them as text. That's why we use a font icon, right? Not an image icon. So I'm going to say 32 pixels. I would normally write it like this, of 2 rem. 1 rem is usually, it's whatever the baseline pixel size is for the browser or for the website. Typically, most, if you don't specify it in a website, it's 16 pixels. That's what most browsers sort of default text size is. You can change that for your website. If you change it to 18, now 1 rem is equal to 18 pixels. So it's whatever that baseline declared pixel size is. If it was 20 pixels, then 1 rem is equal to 20 pixels. 2 rem would be 40, 3 rem is 60. You get the picture. I'm just going to stick with pixels, and we'll make them specific sizes. Now, I think that's going to be okay. We'll just leave it at that. And I want to put a little bit of margin. Margin is space at the bottom, the space between this element and the one below it. And I'm going to say margin bottom of 1, well, let's do 16 pixels. Same thing. So let's go ahead and save those changes, and we'll see where that gets us. Remember, we had to preview it in the browser to see it. Now you can see that our icons are a little bit bigger, and there's a little bit of space between them and the black text underneath. That might be the size that you're looking for. Let's go crazy with it. Sometimes it's helpful when you're designing to do something extreme so that you can get a sense of how big things should really be. So instead of 32, let's do 48. That would be something like 3 rem. Let's see how that looks. Okay, so quite a bit bigger, but maybe this is the look that you're going for. But definitely it sets them off. If you're going to do something bigger like this, I would suggest giving more space underneath and making it very clear. Let's do 32. And just giving them a little bit more clearance on the bottom side, because it's going to help separate the icon and put these two things together, and then the icon will be separate. So you have kind of a separate item here, and then these two things really go together, so they're a little bit closer together in the design. So the bigger you go, the more space you kind of need around things. And it's good to just group things together that should go together. So all 3 of these probably should not be really close together, just because you're trying to separate off and you're trying to make these easily recognizable. And you want to move from this to this. So it's harder to do that when they're closer together. But that's how to add icons to your Mobirise website. Again, you're going to need the HTML code editor to do this the way that I showed you. And hopefully This has helped you to add custom icons, icon fonts to your site. If you wanted to use images, then you would just come in to your code editor, and instead of adding your I tag here, you would just use an image tag, and then pull in whatever image you wanted to. If you're going to do that, you're going to have to upload your images to your server into a specific folder for the website. I would call it icons. And you would put that inside of your assets folder, because your assets are going to hold your anything you can download, icons, images, etc. All right, if you have any questions, please leave them down in the comment section below. I'll get to them as quickly as I can. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, click subscribe and then click the bell notification so that you can be notified whenever new videos are posted. And you can follow me on Twitter at Brian Hafferkamp. And also, if you want to pay this forward, just click the thumbs up. My videos are free, and I'd like to keep them that way, just to help as many people as I can. But it does require time and effort. And if you want to pay it forward somehow, share it with one friend, click the thumbs up button. Those two things would help a lot. And to not only to grow the channel, but to help YouTube recognize that, hey, this is content worth sharing, and this is content worth liking, and they like that, and it helps the videos to get more exposure. All right, thanks for watching, and I'll see you again next time.